Hi, good morning. I am planning to talk to you about the science or the coastal science and how the Vizhinjam International Seaport is going to affect the coastal communities right from Perumathura in the south all the way to Perumathura in the north. I have a special advantage in this aspect of the Vizhinjam International Seaport, etc., especially because I was involved in coastal studies right from 1978 onwards. In fact, I should add that me, Mr. K.K. Ramandran late, and Mr. A. Thomas, we were perhaps a batch of 3 students who crawled up and down the Adimalathura or the Chovara cliff, as it is called those days. It is an exposure of the coastal tertiaries of the Varkala series, sans a carbonaceous clay unit. However, unlike in the type area at Papanasam or Varkala, the Chovara exposure and its northern end is sitting unconformably over what is called oligomictic conglomerate. Well, if you went there today, you will see a huge church. But in 1964 December, when we were working there as MSc students, there was no church and this exposure was very clear. The presence of oligomictic conglomerate. And the matrix or the cementing material of the conglomerate, interestingly, was reported later on as bauxite. There is no surprise geologically. So, that is my record of track record of familiarity with. Then in the 1978, I did a study of the coastal morphology right from Kanyakumari to Talapadi in the north. Then I had a stint in the Center for Earth Science Studies, as it was called those days, and where I sat as the head of the Marine Sciences Division. Those days, Vizhinjam was, the only name of fame for Vizhinjam was a fishing harbor, which now also is a fishing harbor. And the fishing harbor obviously was designed based on the data provided by the state government department concerned to the CWPRS Pune for aligning a breakwater in order to shelter the fishing vessels, fishing boats rather. As soon as this is one of the best constructions because it did not use stone, most of the entire north-south, roughly north-south trending breakwater was built of tetrapods, perhaps for the first time in the state of Kerala. Those days, once this breakwater was completed, the so-called boat bay or the so-called harbor, fishing harbor, that got silted up immensely. In fact, it was considered internally as a blunder or some kind of an engineering mistake. The engineering mistake is not in the design, but in the data provided by the state concerned department of the state to the CWPRS. Because those days are even today, our societal leaders do not consider data as very crucial. Because unless the data is good, reliable, and it is collected following the international standards, the data will be, or anything designed based on the data will prove worthless. So that's exactly what happened in Vizhinjam. And of course, there was only a superintending engineer, Mr. Vizhinjam, and he came on a visit to the director of CES, and he wanted the CES to make a study whatsoever in order to know how to or from which direction sediment is moving into the Vizhinjam fishing harbor, which is practically useless those days. And then, obviously, being the head of the division of marine sciences, I was called over to the director's office, and then I had a discussion with Vizhinjam. He wanted only 2 questions answered, and I said, we will definitely do it, and there will be a budget. And then he said it was somewhere around December. Then we discussed with the matter with the directors, Professor Karunakaran, and Karunakaran was excited and as well as anxious both together, because he had not much confidence in me. Well, of course, that is how most people those days will think of. The older you are, the more reliable your views are. That is no longer true. Even very young people at my age of 32 or 34, I had a very clear picture of how to measure, how to estimate all these data, estimate or collect data so that I can answer questions raised by Vizhinjam. Anyway, by April or so, we were given the money, 3 lakhs or around 3 lakhs. I had put together a team and we did a study, and finally came to the conclusion that littoral sediment flow into the so-called Vizhinjam fishing harbor, because I use the word so-called because boats could not get into the boat basin. It was all very shallow. The original design was something like 8 or 9 meters depth of water. That was what was perceived in the original design. And therefore, basically we answered the question. And then I had also looked at the coastal ocean, bottom configuration of the coastal ocean at every 10 kilometer or so between Puvar and Vakam in the north. And that gave us a picture. Plus, of course, obviously, there are other sources of data. But these days, if I said bathymetric chart or bathymetric chart approaches to Vizhinjam, many people would not have seen this. Vast majority of scientists and engineers. But these are available free of cost. Only 10 rupees was the charge those days. I had the very rare opportunity to put my finger on these maps because, these were given away to me because this dealt with the Indian coastal ocean from the what is called the Syracuse University Library Archives. And the whole bundle is now, even today, sitting in the Karyavatam Geology Department. I don't know what the state of the map is. Probably it is all catalogued and kept safe. So far, so good. So, Then what happened was, what I could not do is the post-tsunami 2004 seabed configuration, we could not measure. We could not do any echo sounding because by that time I retired actually. I retired in 2004. But then, coming back to the question, so once this behemoth called Vizhinjam International Seaport and the breakwater, 1800 meters, built from a water depth of 40 or built upward from a water depth of 40 to 60 meters, is a huge sediment trap. In other words, all the sediment headed toward the north will be trapped within this ship basin. So what is the advantage? The first beneficiary of this project, leave alone the nation, local beneficiary will be the fishing harbor of Vizhinjam, because sediment will cease to enter the fishing harbor. And if this fishing harbor is now dredged and kept clean, based on the original design of the fishing harbor of Vizhinjam, the chances of huge sedimentation and boat basin getting shallower will be eliminated. I'm not denying the fact that in the longer run there will be sedimentation. Some sediment will bypass the Vizhinjam International Seaport facility. But still, it will be unlike today in some kind of a dilapidated condition. Number two, once the sedimentation begins within this, what is called international seaport, this is the very draft, the depth of the waters there is so large compared to, say, for example, our Cochin port, where maintenance dredging is taken up or being done on a 24/7 basis. This Vizhinjam International Seaport, they will not call for everyday dredging. Definitely there will be some kind of a maintenance dredging, but not like what is done in the Cochin port. So, coming back to further north, one of the things our scientists do not believe is that the sediment cannot jump across the headland of Kovalam. In other words, the rocky headland of about a kilometer between the Vizhinjam, what is called a government guest house, and the Kovalam International Beach, now the Ravis, whatever. Sediment will not move across this headland unless and until there is a wave climate or a kind of tsunami-like situation when sediment will move across. Otherwise, it is the final stop of the sediment moving toward north or northerly, right from Kanyakumari, Kulathal, etc., with interruptions in between, will be the final abode will be what is called the Vizhinjam International Seaport. So, the beaches north of Kovalam Headland or Ravi's hotel complex are going to suffer scarcity of sediment, which actually will be reflected in the severe or very visible erosion and loss of land and property along the back shore of this beach, including Thiruvananthapuram Shangubugam Beach. The indoor court and the road on the west side of the indoor court, that is going to bound to get into a wasted situation. The beach will disappear, then the road will slightly and slowly go on eroding off, and finally the final casualty will be the indoor seaport, indoor court, that beautiful building facing the beach. And then what happens to further north? Further north also this will be felt. And why is it so? Because the dominant littoral drift in the west coast of Kerala is always northerly. When I say dominant drift, it is not 1 day or 2 days. Over the year of 12 months, most of the months, the littoral drift of sediment is northerly. And luckily, no oceanographer believes it, because they were not taught about the process with any example from Kerala, unfortunately. Well, that is the fate of our higher education. I don't want to address it. Then, what will happen to Valley? Severe erosion, loss of land and property. And who is going to benefit? The people who live on the south side of the Perumathura breakwater, south side of the southern breakwater at Perumathura. They are going to gain access to God-given, quote unquote, God-given new land. And what about the people living beyond the Perumathura gateway to the Perumathura fishing harbor? Well, they will again stand loose. They are losing already up to Vakkam. The beaches are under severe erosion, and this will continue because there is the southern breakwater of the Perumathura fishing harbor is acting like a dam, and that is what our researchers ignored, or never understood, or never envisioned while designing this structure. Anyway, we can always do the game called blame game, but that is unfortunately what had happened is, what happens in India is, what happens in all over the country is, people never worry about the field data. They do experimentation in the laboratory, calculations in a computer screen using an algorithm, and then decide this is the trend, which is not really what happens in the field. And the best example is the severe loss of beaches in Shangamugam and accumulation of sand, huge volumes of sand on the southern side of Perumathura breakwater. And it also happens the alignment of the Perumathura breakwater on the northern one and the southern one, there is a big flaw. It is built parallel to each other. When it is built parallel to each other, what happens is the velocity of water flowing into the harbor will not reduce itself. Otherwise, in other words, it will not work like a self-cleaning structure. Look at what is called the Neendagara situation. People have all forgotten about the Neendagara fishing harbor. Neendagara fishing harbor, again due to the alignment and the configuration of the seafloor, was a death knell for many fisher folks, many of the fisher folks in the past. This situation was alleviated once the Tangaseri fishing harbor was built. When the Tangaseri fishing harbor was built, sediment flow beyond the Tangaseri fishing harbor toward north and to the Neendagara fishing harbor entry gateway, that considerably it was reduced. On top of everything else, our tsunami had made a redistribution of the seafloor sediment in the coastal ocean, and our people whether they work in the offices or in the laboratories, very scarcely go to the ocean to do the collection of data. In fact, the Bathy chart needs a constant revision every year. After the monsoon, the Bathy chart needs a revision. And now there is no problem actually about the equipments of getting the depth data and creating the maps and comparing the maps, etc., etc. But very scarcely this kind of thought that the bathymetry need be monitored annually has not descended or dawned in the minds of our bigwigs. See, there is no point in looking at the topography of the land area. The land area topography, the changes in topography happens very rarely. The rate of erosion is extremely low, whereas seabed, seafloor, coastal ocean is always covered with unconsolidated sediment and a special wave climate that descends due to some kind of a coastal storm or a cyclone or whatever, or even a tsunami. This redistribution will be very, very remarkable in the sense that that will affect the breakers breaking on the beaches. So, to conclude, the advantage is not only economic and social advantage of the Vizhinjam seaport, it is going to help deter the sedimentation in the fishing harbor and aggravate the erosion further north of our Perumathura harbor. Thank you.